Hello everyone, welcome back to another HP Gaming GameLINK video. Today it is time once again to get into all things crowdfunding. We have a ton of stuff to get through today, so we're going to jump right in. This is your April Gotcha Backer. Hello everyone, welcome back once again. For those of you who don't know me by now, and you should, my name is Matt, and this is our April 2021 episode of our web series Gotcha Backer, which discusses all things Kickstarter, GameFound, crowdfunding, and all sorts of other wonderful bits and pieces as well. Before we get into our project updates and our freshly backed projects for this month, we're going to talk about some recent arrivals and additions. The first of which I want to talk about is the wonderful Catapult Kingdoms, which has arrived. Now, we went all in on this baby. This is the rehashing, I guess, of crossbows and catapults. We did talk about this a couple of updates ago. It is here. It arrived in a massive box because there is enough content to literally sink a ship, enough for 4 players. Is it the crossbows and catapults killer? I don't know. There's a reason crossbows and catapults has lasted as long as it has. This is going to definitely give it a run for its money, particularly with the Volcano expansion, the Siege expansion, the Viking faction that's involved as well. Catapult Kingdoms, the battle for the floor rages on once more. Looking forward to getting that sucker out and blowing Charlotte's mind when that arrives. Well, not when it arrives, but when we get a chance to unbox it. What else have we got? We have also received our copies of Big Bang Burgers and its expansion, Big Bang Burgers, the Australiana expansion. Now, this is one that was a simple little game that we went all in on. We Hall of Famed it, so we've got our names on the cards in there. But we actually really enjoy it. Going to be a bit of a micro review of this one down the track. The core box plays 6 players out of the box. Expansion adds 2 more. Although you can have longer games with a smaller player count with double the burgers. Lots of take that action, lots of disgusting things to put in burgers as well. Definitely worth a look if you have a moment. We have also received some Star Realms and some epic stuff from Wise Wizard Games, as they're now known. We have also received our copy of Rocket Men by the wonderful Martin Wallace, whose name will appear another time later on in this video, which is very awesome. Phalanx Games Rocket Men with the miniatures upgrade as well. Looking forward to getting that out and showing you what that's all about, because it's a deck builder, so yay, you know I'm all in. And then we've also got the last one I want to talk about quickly as a bit of an update is, where are we? Tiny Epic Pirates has arrived, which is very awesome. Now, we went all in on this one. That's the Tiny Epic Pirates Deluxe expansion. It also has the Curse of the Amadak expansion as well, which is very cool. It also came with a pack of metal coins, which will be amazing when they hit the table, and some wonderful skull-shaped D6s as well, with skulls and crossbones in the corners. Very awesome. But that covers all of the different arrivals that have come in. I think I've mentioned them all. There's a plethora of other stuff that's come in. We sort of can't keep up with it all, which has been a bit crazy. But now let's talk about the projects that project updates that we've got for you for April 2021. Okay, we have a ton of stuff to get through, as I said at the outset, but the first project that I want to update you all on is one that I came about through another YouTube channel and everything else as well. It's got one of my favorite mechanisms, which those of you who don't know or are new to the channel will understand that, of course, I mean deck building. Love the deck building mechanic, and I can't seem to get enough of it across the board, and no, I'm not alone. I am talking about the very imaginative and reimagining, I guess, of all sorts of fables. Twisted Fables, the dueling deck building game. Now, this one is very much fractured fairy tale stories from heroines across the fairy tale world. We're not talking about any heroes like Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk. We're talking about Red Riding Hood, Snow White, doing battle until one of them is defeated. We also went all in on a deluxe pledge, which gets us access to all of the characters, along with a 2v2 and a free-for-all 4-player module as well. This one, for those of you who remember when we first talked about it, has the player boards with the cards, so you actually get a hero card. You get your own little player area. You've got upgrades and things you can play, pegs that mark out your power, your defense, your health, that sort of stuff. And there is a central player playmat where you can advance on your opponent, and depending on where you are in relation to them will dictate how many attacks or where your attacks can land. It's reminiscent of the Dueling Club Defense Against the Dark Arts Hogwarts Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, the 2-player version of that game, which is a competitive deck builder, where it has the board in the middle of the table and you could advance on your opponent. If you push them off the end, then you stun them 3 times to win. It's a bit more involved in that if you're standing next to them, you can launch melee attacks from your hand. If you're further away, then you'll need to plan aerial or ranged attacks as well. And depending on where you're at will dictate what attacks are available to you, how effective they are, all that sort of stuff. I am happy to say that this one is on the cards and on deck for delivery. So we're hoping to receive and get our hands on this one in the not too distant future. I believe Etherworks is going to be handling fulfillment of that one. And if I get an email from Etherworks saying a shipment is on the way, it usually means I'm getting it within 2 to 3 weeks. I haven't yet received it from Etherworks, but the updates that we're getting from the Kickstarter team on this one dictate that they'll be looking after fulfillment in the Oceania and Australia region. Twisted Fables promises to be a whole lot of fun. The art on the cards is absolutely outstanding. So really looking forward to showcasing that when it arrives in the not too distant future. So look out for that one. It's going to be epic. Okay, so this one was meant to arrive in April. It is obviously April and we are yet to receive it. However, we have received assurances from the developers that the game is not far away. Production delays across the board, more COVID. We'll say it once, we'll say it again. COVID caused delays. Oh yes, and then there was that thing in the Suez Canal, which just, 2020 and 2021 just seems to be nightmares for the gaming industry at large. However, this one's on deck. Looking forward to this one. I'm talking about a game called Arcana Rising. This is an engine building game that is almost a light version of Valley of the Alchemists, which is a game that was released quite a few years ago now. You will be brewing, making spells and potions and things and all sorts of arcane magics in an effort to become the most powerful. It is at this stage looking like it's going to be absolutely a fantastic production. The deluxe components for this one, the little wooden components, look really, really fantastic. Lots of game in a relatively small box at a low price point as well, which was fantastic. And those of you that are Patreon supporters that have gone in on this one with us, you know who you are. Your copies are not far away. As soon as we get ours, you will get yours, and we'll be able to compare war stories as we play Arcana Rising. Coming to the table very, very soon. I look forward to seeing that when it arrives as well. And then we're going to move on to our next project update for this month. Okay, now onto a game that was steeped in controversy. All sorts of crazy stuff was happening. Kickstarter, this one was funded on Kickstarter. It was actually removed from Kickstarter after it was funded. And then there was some sort of, not discrepancies, there was a legal battle that prevented it from proceeding any further at that point, which of course added on some crazy delays, and everyone started panicking, wondering whether or not the game would actually go ahead and be made. It turns out that this game, which is the aptly named Radlands by Roxley Game Studios, was locked in a legal battle with another producer of a game of the same name. Now, the game in question that was being produced has never seen the light of day. As far as we're aware, it's a digital / potentially a tabletop experience that had about 50 likes on Facebook, and that's about it. So while there was some sort of potential precedent for Kickstarter to remove the project, that legal battle, I'm happy to say, has been resolved. Whether there was a settlement or not, who knows? That's got nothing to do with us. The good thing is this card-slinging dueler that is set in a post-apocalyptic universe and uses crazy bendable cards and everything else as well is on its way, and production moves ahead on schedule at this point. Happy to say that their delay while they were sorting out that legal dispute has not caused too many delays in terms of production, so we're looking forward to seeing that when it gets to the table. The high quality neoprene mats, the high quality components for the water tokens for this one look fantastic. Just a bit of an overview and a reminder, you get 3 camps. Once your camps are destroyed, you have lost the game, and you can play cards and raiders and things. The best part about this game is that the hand of cards you have is the only bit that's different from your opponent. The deck of cards is shared between the players, so as you deal cards off the deck, you can play them on their reverse side, or you can play them face down just as generic raiders and send those guys off to do battle and basically try and take over the camps that your opponent has in play. Lots of strategic replayability, quick playing game times. I think most plays I've seen have lasted about 30 minutes at a max, which means you can get lots of games in, run your own tournaments. Very excited to see Radlands when it finally gets here, and we'll look forward to telling you more about that when it arrives. Okay, project update, and now a bit closer to home. We have a couple of games here in our selection which are produced by the same company. This one that they're producing, though, is not one of their survival games like Lost in Straya or Lost in Valhalla or Lost in Jurassica, which is another one we've backed as well. This is a game by Sam Milham called Silverwood Grove. Now, Silverwood Grove is a little sort of Euro-style worker placement game set in your own little part of the Australian bushlands, and you'll be using workers to build and better your own little establishment, your own little private oasis, if you will, in an effort to score the most VPs, develop the most sacred little grove, and obviously win the game. Great little worker placement mechanics, very simple rule set, lots of high-quality components now that we've unlocked a lot of components over the campaign. Production for these guys moves along quite steadily, and in most cases, for most of their projects, they've been on time despite COVID causing havoc. So very excited to see how this goes. Silverwood Grove promises to be a great little worker placement style game, very similar to something like Creature Comforts, just on a much smaller scale in a nice neat little package. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll obviously be able to bring that one to you as soon as it arrives here as well. Check it out when it reaches our channel. Okay, last but not least, for our project updates for April 2021, we have saved the best to last. You're very welcome. We're going to talk about a wonderful game which is a familiar yet all new feel for the franchise. I am talking about Ares Expedition, the Terraforming Mars card game. Now, this is almost like a Terraforming Mars light, if I can use that term. There is its own little Terraforming Mars board. There is, I say light, but there is 400 and something cards that are in this box. So if you think of Terraforming Mars and all the different cards that are involved in that game, there is no shortage of supply of cards in this one as well. After all, it is a card game version of Terraforming Mars. Same sort of principles apply. You are looking to terraform the planet by completing projects and become the most wealthiest terraforming organization as the generations move on. Increase your terraforming rating, bring about the 3 aspects of the planet: oxygen, water, and of course temperature. And ultimately, be the most wealthy organization at the end who has the best terraforming rating. The project cards, it plays a slightly different way, obviously, because there's no resources as such. But the core mechanic and idea of the game is still the same. I'm looking forward to it as an option, as an alternative to Terraforming Mars, which does require quite a bit of setup, but has an amazing table presence. whereas Ares Expedition obviously doesn't require as much space. I think the idea of having playmats out is probably a good one with the amount of cards that are involved on the table. But at the same time, Ares Expedition Terraforming Mars card game, say that 5 times really fast, promises to deliver the same experience as Terraforming Mars in a much smaller and much more travel-friendly package. Looking forward to seeing all the different components. The artwork is on par with the other Terraforming Mars games. Looking forward to getting my hands on that little gem, and at the moment I think it's still slated for a 2022 release, and they are still on schedule as they finalise their artwork and project development. We'll let you know more as information comes to light, but Ares Expedition Terraforming Mars card game promises to be a wonderful example and a wonderful extension of an already amazing gaming universe. And that is all of our project updates for April 2021, but now it's time to move into some fun stuff as we talk about all the freshly backed projects we've put together or backed or supported for April 2021. Okay, here we go. So the first project I would like to talk about that is brand new on our radar that we got involved in is actually not a brand new game. We're talking about an expansion in this instance. Now, we have been busy, really busy. We've talked about the original game for some time, but we haven't actually got around to completing our unboxing of it. We are falling behind in our unboxing videos and content. It's been a crazy time of late for us here at HB Gaming. But I'm talking about the expansion to Canvas Reflections, which offers a brand new wonderful little mechanic where there is reversible cards that have different options. Now, Canvas, for those of you that are the uninitiated, is a game where you play transparent cards over the top of each other in order to make the most valuable picture you can and score points based on certain conditions. Reflections expands on that idea by giving you the option of playing cards one of 2 ways. Depending on which way you play the card will change the mood. For example, what looks like a series of doves flying through the air on one side of the card will be reversed to be a series of World War II bombers flying over whatever you've got in the bottom of the picture. So there is a little bit of strategy in terms of which way you go. Obviously, when you reverse the card, the scoring icons on the bottom of the card change along with it. So it's going to be really adding that, pardon the pun, extra layer of difficulty as you try to work out the best way to score your artworks to gain the most VPs. Reflections extends the gameplay. The unique idea of hanging the box on the wall with Canvas means that the Reflections box will be able to do the same. The kicker is they've actually put together an artwork that extends the existing artwork of Canvas. So if you have them side by side on the wall, the picture carries on and it makes one larger piece of art, I should say. What this means is that if there is a 3rd or a 4th expansion and they continue in that vein, there's going to be quite a bit of artwork hanging on the wall that you can literally pick up and play off the wall. That's very exciting for me. Canvas Reflections at this stage has finished its campaign, but there is a heap of community development in terms of all the different cards. Road to Infamy have run an amazing campaign, and we look forward to seeing what they bring out with their next project. At this stage, it's on target for its release date. There's no foreseen delays at this stage, with everything opening up slowly but surely. But we'll bring you more information as we know more about Reflections as it comes to light. Okay, the next one I want to talk about, again, we've gone away from backing new titles and we're talking about an expansion. Now, this expansion is something that I was waiting for a while, and when I first heard that this was something that was in development, I lost my absolute bananas. I was trolling Board Game Geek, doing some research on another title, when I came across what I saw as Tasmania, but Tasmania was with a Z or a Z, and that's piqued my interest. I clicked on it and followed through and found that there was a placeholder page for a couple of new expansions to Australia by Martin Wallace. Now, you heard me mention Martin's name earlier. He's responsible for Rocketmen. Australia was a game that we backed back in 2018, and it is the descendants of the old ones, the Cthulhu mythos, I guess, for lack of a better term. They have taken refuge and gone into hiding in the outback of Australia. and you will use your resources to build a port on the eastern coast or the western coast, depending on which side of the map board you use. And you build in troops, recruit resources, recruit fighters, warriors, military might, capture resources, build farms in an effort to beat back the old ones, who will eventually awaken and go to wreak havoc on everything you've constructed. It is a wonderful game with a wonderful time mechanic, whereas you don't spend resources, you spend time in order to complete your actions. And the more time you spend, the less turns you'll actually have in the game. So it's really resource management and then some. Australia and the Revenge of the Old Ones expansion, 2 expansions in one box, allow you to play as the old ones and take the fight to your fellow, well, not your fellow because they're against you, to your fellow players. So one player will play as the ancient ones, whether that's Cthulhu or a myriad of other monstrosities. The other players will then try to take them down. This changes the game because instead of the old ones having sort of just a random AI that controls them, they've got a cerebral gaming mind that can actually make decisions on their behalf and cause some absolute chaos. The Revenge of the Old Ones expansion uses the original board with a host of new components, new cards, and new ways for the old ones to cause havoc. But the players themselves do get their own upgrades and other bits and pieces they can use to beat back the dark, and that's very awesome. The Tasmania expansion for Australia basically is a new map that is, funnily enough, Tasmania. And it is double-sided. There is one part of the board that is has blank components, and you build the board as you go, which is sort of like the fog of war if you're playing Catan Seafarers or something and you don't know where you're going on the map. The other side of the map is a set board which is already seeded and everything else ready to go, which makes setup much easier, and it's designed for a 2 to 3 player count. So you can play the Revenge of the Old Ones component with one player playing as the villain on the Tasmania board with 2 human players taking the fight to the dark. In case you can't tell, I'm very excited about this one. Australia is a favourite of mine. It is very rare that I have enough people who are interested in the Cthulhu mythos to actually give it a go. But it's definitely something worth checking out. And Revenge of the Old Ones and Tasmania are going to bring a much needed 2-player mode to this one. There is the 2-player component in the base game was fine, but it is better with a higher player count. I'm finding that the 2-player mode going up against old ones is fantastic and really, really intrigues me. I'm interested to see how that goes. So I think, I don't know, there's a lot of this game that I'm really, a lot to love in this upgrade component. And they have just completed their campaign. It was very, very successful, and we look forward to seeing that when it gets to our shores and our table. So check back for that one. It's coming soon. Australia, the Revenge of the Old Ones, and the Tasmania expansions. A lot of content, look like a lot of fun. Check it out. All right, onto a game I'm not sure whether we have discussed. If we have, I apologize in advance. It piqued my interest because of the sheer craziness and insanity of it all. Also because of the game's designer. Now, the game's designer is very well known to us here at HB Gaming. In fact, one of their games is sitting on the table next to us, and we've actually shown you another one of their titles as well already in this video. The designer I'm talking about is Scott Arms, tiny epic man himself, and the game that I'm talking about is called So You've Been Eaten. Now, So You've Been Eaten is a game where you play as a robotic space explorer / scavenger who is eaten by a giant monstrosity of a monster that is traveling through space. Now, you can play as the robot, harvesting minerals and other bits of components that the monster has eaten on your way through its intestinal tract while you try to avoid being digested and destroyed. Or you can play as the monster trying to digest the invader who is trying to fight their way out from within. Or you can play as neither and have the game play itself. Yes, that's right. This game comes with a 0 player count. I'm not entirely sure how that works. But the game bills itself as being able to be played by 0 to 2 players, not 1 to 2, not 1. There is a solo mode, of course, but there is a 0 player count where the 2 AIs play off against each other. I don't understand how that works, but that intrigues the hell out of me. The price point for this one wasn't exactly huge either, and being Scott Arms, you know the gameplay is going to be good, the mechanics are going to be sound and solid, and the idea behind it that you are either working your way through an intestinal tract trying to avoid digestion, or you are trying to process food that is giving you a massive case of acid reflux, intrigues the hell out of me as well. And I think that as objectives when you're playing opposite somebody makes for a very unique and interesting gaming experience, plus the ability of having a 0-player count. I keep coming back to it. It's fantastic. It intrigues the hell out of me. I love that. High quality components, great comic style art. Looking forward to seeing this one, of course, as we are with all our projects when it hits the table. And it's not too far away. Hopefully they'll be on target and we'll see this one potentially as early as before the end of the year, which is very exciting. Fingers crossed, who knows? That's So You've Been Eaten by Scott Arms. All right. This next one is one of our bigger titles because we always save the best till last. We are not there yet though. This is a game that intrigues me because I do love a good beer. This one I think is interesting because just the sheer amount of content that's in the base game alone intrigues the hell out of me. I'm talking about a game called Rise of the Gnomes. Now, Rise of the Gnomes is a Euro-style worker placement-y game where you will take on a number of factions and also obviously choose your own faction and lead them to become the greatest brewmasters in all of Brewmerica, which is a country that basically is run by those who can brew the best beer. In amongst all this, there are the gnomes who are going to be trying to take back what's theirs after working as slaves for an extended period of time. They are going to try and prove themselves the best brewmasters in the region, and obviously then they'll be acting as potentially an AI or another faction that you have to fight against. Now, the core box, I believe, came with 8 different factions to choose from. The campaign, as it currently stands, includes up to 16 factions to choose from, so unprecedented replayability with this one, which is fantastic. Dual layered boards, I think, is one of the upgrades that they're unlocking with the campaign. A huge ton of cards of people you can recruit, recipes you can make, all sorts of stuff as you brew your beer in your own little tavern, and ultimately try and sell off the most product in order to win the game and become the most famous brewmaster in all of Brewmerica. It's ridiculously silly, ridiculously fun premise, a big box game without the big box cost, which I think was fantastic as well. Rise of the Gnomes sounds like it's some sort of adventure craziness game, but it actually turns out that it's literally a worker placement style beer tavern game in vein of Taverns of Teeth and all, but it's just not what you'd expect. I think that's why it's become one of our favorites and something that piqued our interest. Rise of the Gnomes on Kickstarter. Check it out. There is not too far to go. If you're one of our Patreons, you'll still have time to get on board this project if you wish. If you are watching this in May and wondering why I'm talking about April, it's because you've missed out. Patreons get access to this much earlier than everyone else. By all means, check it out. Rise of the Gnomes, it's definitely worth a look, and we look forward to bringing that one to the table when it arrives sometime next year. And as always, as we go through our Kickstarters and crowdfunding and game founding and everything else on this episode and this journey through crowdfunding and gloriousness, we have saved the best to last. In my humble opinion, I am a fan of darker themed games because I love all that crazy stuff. It's right up my alley, I should say. And this is no exception. This game is being produced solely on crowdfunding platforms on Kickstarter. It is not going to be available for retail, and the idea behind it intrigues the hell out of me. On top of that, it's being produced by one of my of late favorite publishers, Renegade Game Studios. Now, Renegade produced Clank, which is my favorite deck builder of all time. Although they've also produced Dune, Dune Imperium, I should say, which is fast becoming one of my favorite deck builders of all time. It is just fantastic. I'm talking about
My Father's Work.
Now, this is a game in which you play a mad scientist, or a scientist who doesn't think he's mad or doesn't think they're mad, but everyone else is mad. And you basically are developing some sort of crazy experiment, but you may not complete your experiment within your lifetime. So the next generation that comes into play will pick up where you left off, provided you write down the knowledge that you have learned and garnered throughout the game. Gameplay is split into 3 separate phases, or 3 separate generations, I should say. And by the end of the 3rd generation, whichever family has accrued the most VPs will win the game. And because it pays to know that we all go a little bit mad sometimes, should you succumb to your madness and your scientific genius overtakes your soul and your mind and everything else, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you can actually acquire cards that will help you score additional VPs for your efforts, even though you are slipping further and further into the realm of insanity. Just don't get too crazy and do anything too risque, because the angry mob of the town that is surrounding your village, your homestead, your estate, will come after you if they suspect you doing too many creepy things. So be creepy, but just not too creepy. My father's work is played with a series of scenarios. Each scenario has a lot of content. I think in some scenarios there's over 60,000 different outcomes and events that can take place through books, through actions, through all sorts of other things as well. The one thing I like about this, though, apart from the theme of being a mad scientist and building all this crazy crap and making creatures come to life and all that amazing stuff, is that the pieces that you use to mark out your leader or your mad scientist spouse and helpers are interchangeable. So it's not the minis that actually make up the different pieces, it's the bases. So if your leader is, say, in the square playing piece, the leader can be male or female, or it can be one of the servants, like the Igor, helper dude. He can be the master of the house. It is entirely up to you which way you want to play that. Now, the different playing pieces that you set up have different restrictions. Obviously, if you're if I'm the main mad scientist and I've chosen the male figure to be the mad scientist, I can go and do whatever action I like. The spouse can only do certain bits and pieces, but they get freaked out if they come across things they shouldn't see. And then, of course, your servants can work the fields and work the morgue, and you can build a cemetery in your backyard to help you acquire new parts for your experiments, things like that. My father's work promises to be an absolute rip snorter of a game. Something that's not for everybody, because the content is obviously a bit more risque and a bit more morbid, I should say, for lack of a better term. But my father's work, the storybook feature element, there is a board that's laid out. The storybook is laid out like you would for Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, but they've cut a recess into the dual layered board, which means that the spine spiral binding can sit there, which makes it non-slip, which means it lays flat, which I really love. It's really intelligent. My father's work, the price point for it is a little bit on the higher side. I think it's about $99 US. So call it, $140 Australian, $130 Australian, give or take. But the amount of content they've unlocked during the campaign, which is still running, by the way, at the time of this recording, is huge. They have just launched on Kickstarter. They are 2 days in, 3 days in by the time this will go to YouTube for our Patreon subscribers, which means you can jump on board. Yes, it's a big outlay at $130, $125, whatever it is. But the fact that it's not just one scenario anymore, there's 2, 3, 4 scenarios that have been unlocked for the campaign. Huge replayability, and everyone is going to tackle these problems differently, because there is just so many variable factors that you'll need to consider for your action points. I do like the fact that you can interchange the characters and you can play as a female or a male or a servant or whatever they want as your main character. I love that. So you can have the real posh looking minifigure, too much Lego, miniature as the servant who tends the grounds and everything else and does all the dirty work. I love that. I think it's fantastic. Collecting cards, slipping into a little bit of madness, and then obviously becoming, if you go too mad, you'll end up getting penalties. So it's just like that balance of worker placement / quest management and everything else as well. I love it. It's so good. And there's an app to drive the game as well if you wish. Lots of content for what is going to be an absolutely outstanding game. And we're talking about a game that is actually at a less of a price point than something like Clank Legacy, which offers heaps and heaps of replayability. But once you play through certain points, you can't undo those actions. Whereas in this one, every play is going to be different, depending on the players, depending on the player count, depending on which scenario you play, depending on which actions you take, depending on the experiment that you get as your main experiment, and then you've got side quests that you can do as well, depending on the lore that you take, that you learn, the knowledge that you garner and pass down. So you might have all these resources, but if you don't pass down the knowledge, whoever takes on as the next generation cannot complete those tasks. They'll have to relearn everything from scratch. So resource management is going to be key. Passing on the knowledge is going to be key. It's just going to be such a massive cerebral puzzle to figure out. All the while, other players are sending an angry mob to knock on your door and burn down your house. It's just everything you want it to be in like a Frankenstein type game with unprecedented replayability, because it's going to be a unique experience every time you play, and that, my friends, is something worth waiting for. It is going to be a Kickstarter crowdfunded exclusive. It will not be available in retail, so I urge you to please check out my father's work. It looks absolutely amazing. Very excited to be a part of that project as well. And that's it. That's all of our project updates for April 2021. Is there anything that we missed? Is there any other projects that we should be checking out? By all means, please let us know either in the comments below or hit us up on the website at orders@hbgaming.com.au or our website www.hbgaming.com.au. There are Kickstarters that are coming in on pre-order, so you can grab your copies in advance. And as always, a very special thank you to our Patreon subscribers. We really appreciate your support and everything you allow us to do here on this channel. It is helping us make some amazing connections within the gaming industry. And we have a couple of surprises in store, which you will hear about in due course. Until then, folks, thank you very much for watching. If you want to join our Patreon army, as I mentioned before, jump on board www.patreon.com/hbgamingau. The address is on your screen, and you better get access to all sorts of goodies, rewards, early access to these videos and others just like it, along with being invited to what I'm proud to say, we are now doing our Learn to Plays. We are now doing our special playtesting sessions as well. We have a couple of projects in the pipeline with some friends of ours overseas who are starting to send us in their prototypes. So get on board and you'll be able to join the playtesting sessions for those as well. Other than that, folks, please look after yourselves. If you're watching from another part of the world, please be careful. Please look after each other. And most importantly, look after yourselves above all else. Thank you very much for watching, folks. We'll see you back at the table very soon. But until then, it is bye for now.